Hi, this is Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson.
What's up, everybody? I'm Matt Leinart, 2004 Heisman Trophy winner.
Hey, I'm Zane Gonzalez.
Hi, I'm Matt Barry from ESPN. You're getting ready to watch one of the best college football podcasts ever. It's the Harris Highlight Show.
You're watching the Harris Highlight Show.
And you're watching the Harris Highlight Show.
And you're listening to the Harris Highlight Show. Enjoy it.
Na 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 na.
Coming to you live from Monrovia, California, this is the Harris Highlight Show. Joining me this week is our college football analyst, Josh Schaefer, our college football expert, Lyle Goldstein, with our executive producer, Brady Klein, and I'm your host for the evening, Blake Harris. Boys, we got a lot to get to this week. It's a jam-packed show. This might be one of our longer shows because there's just a lot of information to get to. So before we get to that, quick question. How's everyone doing on this Monday night? It's a different week, or it's a different day than normal. Monday night, how's everyone's week been?
It just got started, but so far, today was not bad.
There you go.
Not terrible. Not terrible at all.
Hey, I mean, the start to every good week is a good Monday, which doesn't always happen. So, yeah, sure.
There we go. All right, boys. We got a great show ahead. As you guys can tell by the title, the thumbnail, this is the SEC preview show. As of right now, when we're recording this on August 24th, the SEC plans on playing football this fall. I believe it's maybe even a month from today. I think it's September 24th, I want to say. So a month away from starting around that time. A lot to get to. Before we get to a few things to go over, first and foremost, make sure to follow the show on Twitter at the HH Show _ Guys, we have some exciting news. We're officially on Instagram. It only took us 4.5, nearly 5 years to finally get an Instagram, but we have an Instagram account. So if you guys go over to at Harris Highlight Show on Instagram, give us a follow. If you guys give us a follow, I'm going to go through, see who followed, and give your Instagram accounts a follow. It took Lyle the longest to follow the show back. I think it took him a day, maybe 2 days, but we eventually got Lyle on board to follow the account. So good news there. So make sure to go follow the account at Harris Highlight Show. You guys can listen to the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. The link to that is in the description of this video. You guys can also support the show via the Super Chat, and you guys can support the show via Patreon. Guys, we have some exciting news. We talked about this last week. We are doing a fantasy football league, NFL style, not college, because it's going to be kind of tough. We're doing an NFL fantasy football league this year with us four and all of our Patreon members, and you get to be a part of it. If you go over, donate to our Patreon, the link's in the description below. You guys can either donate $5 and get a guaranteed spot in the league, or you can donate $1 or $3 and you'll be raffled off for a chance to be in the league. Exciting stuff, guys, because on Thursday, we are going to be drafting live on YouTube. So not only do we get one show this week, we get 2 shows this week. So on Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, it's a little bit of a different time. Two. So this Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, we're going to be doing a show, doing our draft live. So again, if you want to be in it, we only have a few spots remaining. So if you want to compete against the 4 of us in a fun fantasy draft, there you go. Brady says 2 shows. So all the information is in the description. Go to our Patreon, patreon.com/The Harris Highlight Show. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to doing the draft on Thursday. Lots of fun, unique, different rules. I'll just a little teaser, I guess, to get excited. This league's going to have a punter and a head coach.
Punters are people too.
I know Brady has fun with punters in his fantasy football league. So again, if you want in on this, go to our Patreon, find out how you can get in. Again, this Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern, live here on this channel, we are going to be doing a live draft. And before we get to things, just want to thank Andrew Coster for coming aboard, becoming a Patreon member last week. I think he sent us some merchandise in the mail, guys, that Josh and I apparently have gotten about Brady and Lyle that we are going to be rocking next week.
Turns out I never gave him my address. So
wow. That'll
I'm messaging him right now. Here we go.
All right, guys, all that's out of the way. It's time to get to business now. It's time to talk some college football. The AP poll dropped today, so in about a minute, Brady's going to get it up on the screen.
Yeah, once I
the AP
doctor, we'll do it.
The AP poll came out today. Now, last week, they said that they were going to be dropping it on this day, but they did say that the AP poll was still going to feature teams from the Big Ten and the Pac-12, although they're not playing a season this fall. They're playing in the spring, so they still dropped it. And in addition to that, the College Football Playoff Committee came out today, and they released their schedule. They're still going to have a full-on college football playoff, and they're still going to have, the Rose Bowl, which is going to be one of the playoff games. I think at Hard Rock Stadium, the Orange Bowl, I think that's another one of the playoff games. Maybe that's the national championship. So as of right now, the playoff is planning on happening. The AP poll, it's out and about. And now we just have to wait for Brady to load up the AP poll so we can give our quick instant thoughts on an AP poll that really doesn't matter. We've talked about this in years past. The AP poll means absolutely nothing because the people that put it together don't do it that too good of a job. But we have an AP poll of some sort. So, Josh, I guess I'll throw it to you first. What is your biggest takeaway from this first AP poll of the 2020 college football season?
Well, I guess my biggest takeaway, the first thing I noticed, number one, no Sun Devils. So I was kind of disappointed to see that. I definitely thought they would have cracked the top 25, but they didn't. Ultimately, it doesn't matter because they're not going to play. For the most part, there's a lot in here that makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of SEC pretty high up, which is something that we're going to talk about today, which I'm excited about. But my biggest thing is I don't understand why we're doing this. Like, I don't understand why we have an AP poll right here. I kind of like that it's including everybody. But is anybody else just like totally confused on what the game plan here is at this point? Because we've got half the country not playing.
So the stupid thing is that they also, sorry, Lyle, that it's on you right now, but that way when people are tuning in right now, they know we're talking about the AP poll, but it's okay. When Lyle's talking, I'll take it off of him. The stupid thing about this is the fact that they said once the season starts, whoever's playing is going to remain in. So once the season starts, all the Big Ten, Pac-12 teams are going to drop out. So come week one, is it just going to switch where all of a sudden now more teams are being added? I get wanting to drop this because just it shows where everyone would have been, but don't have this be the official AP poll. Have them come out and say, this is what it would have been had everyone played, and this is what the actual AP poll is. So I don't get what the whole point is.
Have AP poll A, have AP poll B.
Yeah, I don't get the point of having it like this.
This is also what they're doing right here is kind of like why is kind of exactly what they didn't do when the COVID pandemic first, kind of broke out and everything was shut down with college basketball. They didn't want to release anything, and they're like, we're not going to say who would have made it and who wouldn't have made it. We're not going to do anything like that. And then they're doing it for football season when half these teams aren't going to play.
9 teams on the AP poll right now, I just counted, are scheduled as of now to not have a season.
Yeah. And I don't get it. And by the way, Josh, ASU came in at number 29. If you take into account
votes.
Indiana got votes too, baby.
Oh boy. So Indiana got votes. But again, the fact that this AP poll doesn't really mean anything. Lyle, were there any notable takeaways you had from it?
Not really. You know my 2 cents on the AP polls. I'm not going to spend more than like 30 seconds talking about it just because it's irrelevant. And this isn't going to matter once the actual college football rankings come out in November. If you want me to nitpick something, I guess North Carolina at 18 seems a little high after going 7-6. I know Sam Howell's a stud, but let's see him actually put a 9-10 win season together, I'd say. That's about it. Otherwise, I didn't really have any gripes with it.
I like it. The one thing obviously is having the teams that aren't ranked on there. Some promising teams. You see, like Lyle said, 7-6 last year. Same thing can be said about Iowa State. They're in sort of a similar boat, but they do have a really good returning depth and good returning roster. But I think, like Lyle said, the AP poll, we don't want to spend more than 30 seconds on it. But I think something, this has popped into my mind, something that could be kind of interesting going forward for this year is the coaches poll. Have the coaches of the teams who are not playing be the only ones to decide the coaches poll. So all the Pac-12 and all the Big Ten teams, they get to make the official coaches poll for this season coming up. That'd be pretty interesting because, you're not voting for yourself. So I think that'd be a pretty fun thing to do going forward this year.
Yeah. I mean, looking at this list, I mean, at Brady, you said there's 9 teams that are going to go. So Tennessee, before week 1, they're going to hop from 26 to 16 in the AP poll. They're going to have 9 teams just slot their way in. So again, the AP poll means nothing. I've said this in previous shows, the fact that they're having a regular college football playoff committee. So in season part 1, how's that going to work? And then in the spring season, are they still going to have playoff rankings? This whole thing's a mess, but I guess we're going to have to wait and see how that goes. But enough AP poll talk, because as for those of you that have watched us long enough, you know how much we truly love the AP poll. Guys, I think it's time that we get into the SEC. Last week, we did a complete preview of the Big 12, and this week we're going to do a complete preview of the SEC. So for all of you SEC fans, get ready, because we're going to go more. I think we're going to do more in depth on SEC teams than Big 12 teams, to say the least. Spoiler, sorry, Vanderbilt and Arkansas fans, or actually Arkansas fans. I think we might be briefly talking about Arkansas later in the show, but it's time now, guys, to talk about the SEC. And who better to start with in the SEC than the defending national champion LSU Tigers. Guys, LSU last year, they won the Natty 15-0, arguably the best team we've seen probably in our lifetimes. Maybe, I know we had a discussion about this on a show back in like January, February, as to how good that LSU team was. So LSU comes in this year. What can we expect from them in 2020? They are losing Joe Burrow, who gave us probably one of the best seasons we've ever seen from a quarterback. They're losing Clyde Edwards-Helaire, their running back, Justin Jefferson, their star wide receiver. And I believe, I can't remember the exact number, but I want to say that LSU, they set the record this year from the NFL draft by having the most players from a team drafted. I'm sure our executive producer, Brady Klein, will probably get the number up of some sort. I think it was like 15, 16. So they're losing. I think he's muted right now.
It's 18. Yeah, I muted
okay,
myself.
So 8.
Sorry. 18.
So
18. And it was all draft eligible players were either drafted or signed from LSU.
So LSU, they lose, a good chunk of their team to the draft. They still have a lot of good players, but guys, again, this was an LSU team that was historically good in 2019, largely due to Joe Burrow. They lose their offensive coordinator, Joe Brady. They lose their defensive coordinator, so they're bringing in a new coaching staff. They still have Coach O. What are your guys' expectations and I guess predictions for LSU in 2020?
Are we doing our standings predictions or records prediction right now, or do you want us to keep that in the back pocket?
I mean, you can bring it up, but we're going to save that for later in the show. But you can talk about what you think the record's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, this is for the most part, I think LSU is a 1 or 2 loss team this season. They're losing a majority of their starters. They've only got 8 guys coming back, and some of the guys they're losing are Justin Jefferson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Joe Burrow, like Blake mentioned. So they're losing a lot, but I think it's also worth pointing out who they're returning, and I'll leave it at Jamar Chase and Derek Stingley Jr. And I think when you throw out the two of the top, 5, 10 players in college football, and you're returning both of them, I think that's a pretty big return, despite the fact that you're only bringing back 8 starters total from both sides of the ball from last year. But now we also get to see what Miles Brennan can do at quarterback.
I mean, it's not just Burrow, and it's not just Edwards-Helaire, and it's not just Jefferson. I mean, you're losing everybody. You look at the defense, they're losing Fulton, they're losing Chason, they're losing Delpit, you're really losing everybody. I think somebody asked this trivia question in one of our shows, like what was the only LSU position that was not drafted in this previous NFL draft? And the only one was left guard. Like, they're losing everybody. However, the 2 guys they're bringing back to kind of headline this team are the 2 guys that I believe, despite having a guy like Joe Burrow last year, were the 2 best players on this whole team. You got Derek Stingley on defense. You got Jamar Chase on offense. Now, obviously, you're going to need some help around those guys to still stay relevant and stay competitive. But like Josh said, I mean, this is going to be kind of all through Miles Brennan. I know it's easy to say a quarterback's the X factor of a team, but he's going to be the X factor. And you just look at LSU's track record and history the last few years. Look at 2018 when Joe Burrow was good. They were a good team. They won their bowl game, but they weren't a championship powerhouse, and people didn't view him as lethal. Joe Burrow comes back the next year looking like maybe the best quarterback we've ever seen, and LSU was that good. Now, obviously, that's not realistic to expect Miles Brennan to replicate a season like Joe Burrow had, but it's going to kind of go through him. If LSU wants to stay relevant and competitive this year, he's going to have to learn quick.
Yeah, I think the biggest and most obvious point, like the both of you guys have said before, is how does Miles Brennan fill the shoes of Joe Burrow? What was it, 56 touchdowns responsible for from Joe Burrow? That's nearly impossible to immediately fill. So I think one of the big things is, if you're an LSU fan or if you follow college football like we do, you cannot expect LSU this year to be the same team they were this last year. It's just not possible. It just doesn't work like that, because LSU this last year was one of the greatest football teams we've seen in college football history. There are only so many of those in conversation. So you have this high, you're going to fall off immediately a year. They could still have a 9-1, 8-2 season. Some people would think, oh, that's a disappointment to what they did last year. But you're at a 9-1, 8-2 season. You have nothing to complain about at all there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, too, because it's not like in regular sports where you can just build a dynasty, you can keep it going. Unless you're Alabama, where on a year-to-year basis, you're just consistently dominant. They're losing a lot. I mean, historically, one of the best offenses we've ever seen. They lost a lot of players, on defense as well. And as Lyle said, the only position that, I guess aside from kicker that, wasn't drafted was the left guard. So they're losing a bunch. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Miles Brennan. As something, as I mentioned it before we got to it, it's the fact also they're losing their offensive coordinator and their defensive coordinator. Now, they brought in good replacements, but, I mean, it's not often that, one, in general, just any college football team loses both offensive and defensive coordinators in the same offseason. But coming from the national championship winning team, I mean, that's almost unheard of, losing both. So we'll have to wait and see how that goes.
It's not as uncommon as you'd think.
Losing both after winning a natty?
After winning a natty, after having the year that both sides of the ball did for LSU.
Oh, no, it makes sense.
They're going to get poached pretty quickly.
Oh,
it's not surprising.
Oh, especially a guy like Joe Brady. I mean, that guy is like a god of a coordinator.
I'm not saying like they didn't deserve it. I'm not saying it's uncommon. I'm just saying, like, when was the last time? I mean, maybe someone in the comments can tell us, but when was the last time a team won the national championship and both their offensive and defensive coordinator, they both left? I mean, I can't remember the last time we've seen that happen. So it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see how Miles Brennan does, because, again, Joe Burrow was kind of like a one-year wonder, where it's how much of that was on Burrow, how much it was on Brady. We'll have to wait and see, because Joe Burrow 2 years ago looked like an average quarterback. He was a 6th-round pick, and he turned himself into a 1st-round pick with that LSU offense. They still have some really good weapons. I mean, they still have the best wide receiver in all of college football with Jamar Chase. So that's definitely going to be, a helpful thing for him. But when we get to it later in the standings, I don't think it's you can expect LSU to go undefeated. 1, 2, maybe even 3 losses, depending on our standings. I think it's fair. But, I mean, they still have a chance to be a really good team. When you're playing in the SEC, they're going to be able to play good teams. They could pick up some great wins. I wouldn't be shocked if they go 9-1 or they go 10-0, just because all these teams that are playing are just so competitive, so good. But it's one of those things. We'll just have to wait and see. Do you guys have any closing thoughts on LSU before we move on?
I was just going to say that Brennan, I mean, despite being a guy that only has thrown 2 career touchdowns, he will have some help despite everything he's lost. Obviously, there's a lot to replace on this team, but the thing that's going to help him is, number 1, Jamar Chase, and like you said, best wide receiver in college football. The other thing is Terrace Marshall. Like, this was a wide receiver trio that was, I mean, next to Alabama, maybe as good as anybody last year. Terrace Marshall had 13 touchdowns last year. And obviously you're losing Jefferson, but you have a guy like Marshall who was technically your number 3 receiver last year, and those are the stats he put up to go next to Jamar Chase. That's one thing that should make things a little bit easier for Miles Brennan, and hopefully a little bit easier for this LSU offense too.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. Spot on. So we got LSU. We got them as the reigning champions. And, guys, last year, Alabama had a down season. They didn't make the playoff. They lost 2 games, something that's almost unheard of with Nick Saban Alabama teams. They have an interesting outlook for their season. Now, years past, there's been some quarterback controversy as to who's going to get the starts. We also have that with Alabama this year. Not really much controversy. It's just 2 guys battling it out. So in regards to Alabama, guys, we got Mac Jones, who came in last year for Tua Tagovailoa when he got hurt, and he looked pretty good. I mean, he looked like he was doing a fairly good job, leading that team. But then again, as we've seen with Bama in years past, you don't necessarily have to have a decent quarterback for that team to look really good. So you got Mac Jones, and then you got Bryce Young, 5-star dual threat quarterback. As of right now, I mean, I haven't really been following Bama practices too much to see if anyone has like a lead, who has the upper edge, but you got these 2 guys. You got the guy in Mac Jones where has familiarity, You've seen what he can do before, but you also have kind of like the little 5-star, the idea, what could he potentially be? How good can he be in Bryce Young? What do you guys think as of right now? Again, a lot can change in the next month. Who's going to come out and win this quarterback battle?
Really quickly before we jump into that, the last team to win the national championship and lose both their OC and DC was the 2018 Alabama staff. Mike Locksley left from Alabama as the offensive coordinator, is now the head coach at Maryland. And then Josh Gaddis left Alabama to then become the offensive coordinator at Michigan. So both got poached to pretty good jobs, even though they were, coordinators at Alabama after winning a championship. 2018. There's your answer. So it happens more than you think, Blake.
All right. Well, I posed a question, so whoever wants to go.
I know. I just jumped in with the answer to your question
I know.
from earlier.
I think it's going to be Mac Jones getting the starting quarterback job at Bama. I think he's been good in the past when he has seen action behind Tua. But look, there's not going to be any seniority for him. There's not going to be any loyalty toward him from the coaching staff. The fact of the matter is that this is Nick Saban we're talking about. This is a guy who is going to do whatever it takes to win football games. And if he thinks that he can win more football games with Bryce Young than with Mac Jones, Bryce Young's a starting quarterback as a true freshman. I mean, there's not much else you can say about it other than Nick Saban's going to pick the guy that he thinks he's going to win with. It's not going to be like, okay, Mac Jones has been here for a little while. We're getting started early. That's a -1, boys. We're getting started early. So, look, Mac Jones was pretty good behind Tua when he did play. And, he was behind Tua and maybe learned from him a little bit. And he's been here inside the program for a little while. Maybe he'd be the better quarterback. No, if Bryce Jones is playing really well in practice, Saban's going to go with Bryce Jones or Bryce Young instead of Mac Jones. I think that's the easy decision, is go with whoever's playing well. And like Blake said, I'm not at Bama practice. I think Mac Jones ends up getting the job, but the fact of the matter is that if Bryce Young's playing better, then I think he's going to be the starting quarterback. And either way, this is an Alabama team that, we'll talk about in a little bit who our top 5 players are in the conference. It was so hard to not pick 5 dudes from Alabama. Honestly, I think I wrote down about 8 or 9 guys total, trying to narrow down who I thought my top 5 guys in the conference were. And out of those 9 guys, I think 6 or 7 of them were Alabama players.
Sounds about right.
They have so much talent. They're losing their top 2 receivers in Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs, yet they're still bringing back Devontae Smith. They're bringing back Jalen Waddle. They've got Najee Harris going to be running the ball. So regardless of who the starting quarterback is, the offensive weapons are already there, and they're going to have a good O-line. So, I don't even really think it matters. Either way, Alabama's going to be a winning football team regardless of who the starting quarterback is.
I think we've talked about this before. I think Mac Jones starts with the job, and I remember kind of going with agreeing with Brady on this whenever this topic came up, was just because of how crazy and unusual the last 4 or 5 months have been. It might be a little bit hard to get a read on Bryce Young just because there hasn't been as much time to practice. And the fact that Mac Jones, when he came in last year, was pretty good. He threw 14 touchdowns to 3 picks, and he was completing just under 70% of his passes. I think he starts with the job. What I think is going to happen is it's going to look a lot similar, or it's going to look really similar to what Trevor Lawrence went through his freshman year at Clemson. First 3, 4, 5 games, maybe he sits on the bench and learns behind a guy that's been under center and has experience. And then all of a sudden the tides start to turn. Nick Saban's going to realize, look, Mac Jones is a good quarterback, but Bryce Young is a difference maker. And I think mid-season you're going to see Bryce Young under center.
Especially in a season, where there's so much uncertainty with it going forward. Who knows how many games you'll get? Who knows? All right, they're going to start playing. Who knows if they'll finish playing? Like Lyle brought up a minute ago, I brought up the point a few weeks back, and that was it's a safe bet to start Mac Jones to start the year. And, honestly, Bryce Young could win the quarterback battle, could win, the battle in the QB room, but he could not win the starting job. It's happened before. I'm guessing the same thing happened with Trevor Lawrence when he came in as a freshman. He's the number 1 recruit in the country. He's the guy. He's the next big thing, but he doesn't play immediately. You learn a little bit. You get there's an acclimation period going from high school to college to the NFL, but obviously this is just high school to college, and especially with this so much pushed off, you don't have the full off season. I'm not sure if Bryce Young was an early enroll at Alabama in the spring, so it's going to be one thing you have to look out for is how much time has he actually had under center. There's one thing to be in the playbook, but there's one thing to be actually executing the playbook, and I think Mac Jones is the starting choice for Nick Saban at the beginning of the year.
Blake, real quick, I think it's also worth pointing out that think about who Alabama's last two quarterbacks were, last two true starting quarterbacks. Number one, you have Tua, who was not originally the starting quarterback. He took the job from Jalen Hurts. And then Jalen Hurts, who did not start that season as the starting quarterback. It was Blake Barnett. And Jalen Hurts came in the middle of that game and took the starting job from him right then and there.
Good old Blake Barnett.
We love Blake Barnett. Who knows what's going to happen? But I think that everybody makes a good point here. Maybe Bryce Young will win the job. Maybe not now, but maybe halfway through the season or halfway through week one. Who knows?
The tough thing is you don't have that FCS game or that knockoff game at the beginning of the year to say, all right, Mac, you get a half, Bryce, you get a half, go play.
No, they
or
do.
In week 10.
They're playing Missouri. They're playing Missouri week one, so they do get that.
So they do.
They do get that week one.
But no Mercer week 11 anymore. So what are they going to do there?
No Chattanooga on the schedule either, man.
And maybe that's for the best. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, Mac Jones, because I had to look up just what he did last year. I mean, in their bowl game against Michigan, 327 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Against Auburn, 335 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Granted Arkansas, but he completed 82% of his passes, 235 yards, 3 touchdowns. So Mac Jones, I mean, he's an above average quarterback. He's definitely a good quarterback, but Bryce Young, I mean, this guy, I went and watched his highlights earlier today, just his high school highlights, and this guy is an absolute freak. He's a stud. I think whenever he comes in, whenever his chance is going to be, he's going to excel. I mean, he's going to be fantastic with Bama. It's just a matter of, again, Nick Saban. Nick Saban doesn't care. Like Mac Jones could have been there for 8 years. He could have went on his Mormon mission. He could have torn every age. He could have torn. Yeah, Case Keenum or a taste of hell, and he'd say, you know what? Sorry, Mac Jones. Bryce Young's the better quarterback. I want to play him. So I guess it just comes down to who's better at the quarterback battle. I'm not going to be shocked if either one is named the starter. I'm not going to be surprised. However, I do think there's a higher chance that Mac Jones gets replaced than I hope than Bryce Young getting replaced. I think once Bryce Young's in, you're not really going to want to go to Mac Jones. So it's going to be tough because as we've seen in Bama, they're likely going to be beating everyone, and then it's just a matter of does Bryce Young come in a garbage time and succeed. We'll have to wait and see. But as of right now, I'd probably have to give the edge to Mac Jones.
Going from Mac Jones to Bryce Young back to Mac Jones would be like going from a Toyota to a Ferrari back to a Toyota. It just doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
What a sad comparison for Mac Jones. like a nice Toyota, but a Toyota.
A Chevy, like a Corvette.
Oh.
Corvette.
Ferrari. Moving on, though, just like even from just talking about the quarterbacks, the offensive weapons, Najee Harris, wide receivers, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith. Offensively, they're going to be fantastic. Defensively, every year Alabama has 3 or 4 guys that end up in the first round. It's just bound to happen. Their defense is loaded with talent. Their backups are probably better than a lot of starters in a lot of Power 5 conferences. So Alabama, they're going to be just fine. One thing that I wanted to mention, it wasn't what you just sent in the group chat Brady. This is something I forgot to put on the show doc, but they announced the other day, and this is very shocking coming from the NCAA, the fact that regardless of how many games you play, if you play this upcoming fall, you play all 10 games, you're not going to lose a year of eligibility. You're not going to lose. We talked about this, I think, in previous shows, but it hadn't become official. It's official now. I just want to get your guys' thoughts on how you have guys now that can play a full season, and they're not going to lose a year of eligibility. So now all of a sudden, Trevor Lawrence, he can have 3 full years remaining at Clemson just like that. I mean, obviously, for guys that are going to be going into the NFL draft, this doesn't impact them at all. This kind of more impacts maybe like the seniors that don't plan on going to the NFL or that their draft stock maybe isn't going to be the best. They can come back for an additional year. I just want to get your guys' quick thoughts on the NCAA actually allowing something like this to happen.
I'll jump in quickly and say I love it. Imagine what this would do to a guy like Joe Burrow last year before the season that he had. It gives him that safety net. I don't know if they have to decide when they're going to go to the draft or whatever it may be. But say Joe Burrow has that safety net of, I can just go out and ball. And if I play terribly, then I can just, take a step back, refresh, and go another year. So I really like the move by the NCAA. I think it had to be done because you're going to get half the schools not playing and half of them playing. You make it as even of a playing field as you can.
I think it's something that maybe let's look at the way that they do, what qualifies somebody as a rookie in baseball or in the NHL or in the NBA when you play a certain number of games, and that kind of says, okay, well, you're no longer a rookie anymore if you play X amount of games in this league. I think it should kind of be something like that because, if you go out and you play 10 games and you have an awesome season, suddenly you still have more years of eligibility. Ultimately, I think that it's a good decision because it gives more opportunities for players to excel at this level so that they can get to the next level. But I think that there's something up here that just doesn't sit right with me. Bottom line, I don't think any of this makes sense because there's clearly no consistency in college football at the moment. So that's my biggest problem with everything is you have teams that aren't playing and you have teams that are playing, but everybody still has eligibility. I think that's kind of strange, to be totally honest with you.
I'm kind of in the same boat as Brady. I think it's fair. I think it was necessary. Like with some schools playing, some schools not playing. I think this was the right thing to do. And like Brady said, it gives guys that maybe weren't so much in the limelight before a chance, more of their chance and their fair chance to get into the limelight in their last year or two of eligibility.
The thing I think it's a great idea. I think it's fantastic. But my biggest concern is you have a certain amount of roster spots on a given roster. You have a certain amount of scholarships that you have on a certain roster. So what's going to happen now if all of a sudden, like let's say ASU, for example, ASU has 24 seniors that would have left, this upcoming season. What happens if 19 of them return? They're still going to be on scholarship. How is this going to affect these? I feel like the incoming freshmen, they're the ones that get kind of screwed if they're getting screwed by that. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? How I think you're going to have too many players, too many roster
They're going to
spots,
expand scholarship numbers for the next year.
Okay. Do they come out and say that,
to.
or is it just? I would hope so. If the NCAA makes a move like this, you would think they'd be thinking about that.
I know some of the conferences have proposed it to the NCAA. I don't know if it's been passed yet. I know some of the smaller sports, like some of the spring sports, baseball, softball, and sports like that, have given additional scholarships to each program. I think I couldn't give you the exact number, but I know that they were given extra scholarships for the year going forward. I'm not sure about what they did for football, though. But I know the NCAA has done something about it so far, just not sure what they've done football side of things.
It still creates kind of like a log jam of players, though.
Exactly.
Too. And I know that obviously, which is what Blake's saying, but I know that we're trying to take steps to make sure that's not going to happen right now. In the spring, Lyle and I were working in Cronkite News for Arizona PBS this past spring and working in the newsroom, and I did a story on what the hell all these these high school players are going to do for whatever sport they were playing in the spring. And talking to coaches, so many of them were like, how am I supposed to get some of these guys who are uncommitted to commit? Like, there are all these different coaches at all these schools for whatever sport they coach in that now don't have a position to offer these guys. So they came up with that solution way later after all of this first happened. So now it seems like we're starting to get like a little bit of an understanding. But the phrase that all of these coaches kept using was a log jam. There's going to be players that are essentially like backlogged, like, oh well, we were going to take this guy and then we can't, but now we're still going to try to bring him in. And then there's just all this logistical stuff that doesn't make sense when you have your certain roster numbers and you have your scholarship numbers and you're trying to find places for guys on the team.
This could definitely make college football. It's not going to happen, but I'm saying just, 4 more years of Jaden Daniels, 3 more years of Trevor Lawrence, 3 more years of Justin Fields. You got all these guys that are, again, it's not going to work, but that'd be incredible. We have some of these guys stay a few extra years. But overall, I just thought it's
can't
great.
wait until Paul Tyson actually wins the starting job at Alabama for quarterback over Bryce Young and Mac Jones.
This would have been a fantastic rule for Hunter Renfrow, who I think is still actually eligible at Clemson somehow. He's playing in the NFL. I didn't even see the comment, but yeah, perfect. Hunter Renfrow could have used that spot on. But guys, it's time to move on to another team right now. Auburn. We got to talk about Auburn, guys. And there's only one player and one player only that I want to discuss. And that is, what can we expect in 2020 from the legend that is Bo Nix? Josh, I believe in previous shows you've shared with me what his completion percentage is. I don't know if you had it off the top of your head. If not, I can go and I can get that information for you if need be.
Yeah, why don't we go? So somebody was talking to us on Twitter about it. So I responded and was explaining the reasoning. And I went deep into the stats.
Yeah.
They were like, well, he had better numbers than Jaden Daniels. I'm like, all right, well, hold on a second. This is an ASU team that, did not have a great offensive scheme whatsoever. The playbook was awful. You also gave the ball to one running back, and that's it. And you utilized him every single play. And it's you didn't throw the ball downfield half the time. That's not on Jaden Daniels. But there are outliers in the stats too, where, okay, yeah, one of Bo Nix's games came against the Oregon Ducks, and then, okay, well, one of Jaden Daniels' games where he threw for less than 100 yards was in a blizzard in Utah. So it's there are outliers that affect the stats, but yeah, his completion percentage was 60% or below 60 or something like that.
57.
57.
So that's not good. That's not good.
I need to share with you, Josh. So I went back and I just, again, you can't determine a quarterback's play based off completion percentage, but in certain aspects, you kind of have to look at it. So his 4 worst games last year, completion percentage wise, came against the 4 best teams that Auburn played. Against Florida, he completed 40% of his passes for 145 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. Against Oregon, he completed 42% of his passes, 177 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Against LSU, 43% of his passes, 157 yards, touchdown, interception. Against Bama, he completed 50% of his passes, 173 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. He threw more than 207 yards 3 times in a game. He had a multi-touchdown game 3 times. Now, I get you can't exactly look at the stats. You can't just look at those and determine it. This guy was named SEC Freshman of the Year over Derek Stingley, which none of us understand. But for those I know Lyle and I definitely, when we were in the apartment, anytime Auburn was on, that game was on, so we can watch every offensive Bo Nix snap. And I couldn't tell you how many times he would overthrow someone out of bounds. He would underthrow someone, and we would just go, Bo Nix. I get this guy has potential. I think Auburn fans are very high on him right here. Bo Nix, more like no Bix. Guy, if he turns out to be a perennial, All-American, a Heisman contender in a year or two, I'll eat my words on it. But this guy, I didn't watch all 130 quarterbacks last year in college football, but I watched at least more than half. He had to have been the worst quarterback I saw out there. I get that he won a game against Oregon, even though he underthrew that ball as time expired to the end zone. He beat Bama, I think. Auburn beat Bama last year, but again, he was not irrelevant in that game. But guys, Bo Nix, if he's good, Auburn's going to be fantastic. They were really good last year with him playing below average. If he can step his game up and become, a top 10 quarterback in the SEC, then Auburn's looking in good spirits.
Yeah, and I found that conversation we had on Twitter from our account, and I wanted to point out, so Bo Nix against top 25 defenses last year was 17 and an interception, in multiple games against Power 5 or against top 25 defenses. He played 5 games and was 2-3, including his bowl game. Another thing that stands out to me is one of his highest passing totals yardage wise that season was against Georgia, where he had 245 yards. The problem is that this is an outlier because he threw the ball 50 times, which he didn't do. He didn't get anywhere near that number any other game that season. And that comes out to 5 yards per attempt, which is also not very good. So bottom line, I think he has the potential to be a good quarterback, especially in the SEC. He has shown that he can run the ball too, or at least when he needs to. That's another part of the conversation we had. He had more total touchdowns than Jaden Daniels because he ran the ball more. like Blake said, like the stats don't determine who's a good quarterback and who's not. I think they shed a little bit more light on, a player's abilities, but I think the potential's there. He has a high ceiling. Let's see what happens. Like, I think after a year and the fact that he started as a freshman, I think he can only get better.
I think he can only get better too, considering what he displayed for us last year.
I would hope he can only get better. I don't think he can get much worse.
Look, like if you don't want to go off stats, you can go off the eye test, and like Blake was saying, like some of the games, this guy would be on the field, especially against superior opponents. I remember going on the show 2 days after that Florida game, and I just still was in shock from what I had to watch that guy do. like he was 11. Like you guys talked about the percentages. I think this one speaks to me more. That Florida game, he was 11 for 27 with 3 picks. That's not good, to put it lightly. And like Josh talked about, there were other games too where the numbers were pretty similar. He had that good drive against Oregon week 1, and he didn't have a great game. He was 13 for 31 in that game, passing-wise, but he had a good drive. And I was like, okay, it's his first game. He's a true freshman starter against a really, really good team in a big environment. Maybe he'll get better. And it was a lot of inconsistent play throughout the year. Now, like Josh said, he can run the ball. That helps being a dual-threat quarterback. But plain and simple, like the passing – it just has to get better in every way, shape, and form. Because if not, Auburn, despite a team having a good chunk of returning starters, is going to have its issues this year. Unless Bo Nix gets better.
I'll say this very quickly. You don't even need to go just to me, Blake. I'll say it quickly.
Okay.
Or you did. It's not good when you peak week 1 or week 0 like Bo Nix did. He did. That was his best game of the season, was against Oregon. It's not good when you peak week 0.
Well, as I said too, Lyle taught me that was a good final drive he had when he ran it on 4th down. He
it was a great drive.
But
great drive.
He underthrew that final pass in the end zone. I forget which Auburn receiver it was, made that fantastic play. I still don't get. Again, Auburn goes as far. They still had a pretty good year last year for the fact that he played awful. If Auburn had a somewhat decent quarterback, they potentially could have been in playoff discussions last year, even though they kind of were until the final week. So I think Auburn, they go as far as Bo Nix takes them. They have some great pieces offensively. Defensively, they still have some good pieces. They return a lot of great guys. But again, the legend of Bo Nix is only going to continue to grow.
Never forget what I said on one of our shows last fall.
Oh, I did.
I remember.
Bo Nix for Heisman.
Oh, there
That's
you
true.
go. Bo Nix.
Bo Nix real quick before we move on, I'm looking at the top 10 or the top 9 for passer rating in the SEC last year. So he finished 7th on the list behind Joe Burrow, Kyle Trask, Jarrett Guarantano from Tennessee, Jake Fromm, Kelly Bryant, Kellen Mond, and then Bo Nix with a 125 passer rating. And just one more thing, I know this isn't a great comparison. So last year, Joe Burrow finished with over 5,600 yards, 60 touchdowns, and 6 picks. 60 and 6. Bo Nix finished with 2,500 yards, 16 touchdowns, and the same number of interceptions as Joe Burrow.
How many pass attempts comparison?
Probably fewer. He threw 150 pass attempts fewer, but he still threw the ball 400 times. 6 interceptions, though, compared to the same number that Joe Burrow threw, but Joe also threw 60 touchdowns.
Joe Burrow was also the number 1 pick in the draft and won the Heisman.
I know, so it's not a great comparison. I just like pointing out that Joe Burrow had 60 touchdowns and 6 picks, and Bo Nix also had 6 picks, but only 16 touchdowns compared to Burrow's 60.
Hey, just think about that Florida game. He had 11 completed passes to his own team and 3 completed passes to the opposing team. So Bo Nix is definitely going to come out and have the greatest. He's going to beat Joe Burrow's season. He's going to set the 60 touchdown record with only 10 games. He's going to get 6 touchdowns a game.
That'd be
He's
ridiculous.
also watching the show live right now, and now joining the show is Bo Nix.
All right, guys, moving on now to talk about another quarterback in the SEC who looks to actually compete for a Heisman. That's Kyle Trask. It seems like Kyle Trask, he's been in Florida for a few years. He's behind Felipe Franks and the entire Felipe Franks domino effect that we all come to know and love. He finally has his chance to start the season with Florida. I've said this before. I'm high on Florida. I actually have him as one of my early season playoff picks, especially now with only 3 main conferences. It's looking like a much better pick. Do you guys think Kyle Trask has it in him? Now, he put up really good numbers last year. They aren't anything that would blow you away, but he is a good quarterback. Do you think he'll be able to lead Florida back to the promised land? Not since the Tim Tebow days, and especially for the playoff is one thing, but let's just talk about like what I put down in the graphic, getting them to the SEC title game at least.
I'm surprised you didn't just plug your video there, Blake.
I can only plug so much, Brady.
No.
All right then.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that he proved himself last year, and like Blake said, I mean, he didn't wow anybody, but he proved himself enough that he could be the guy to lead Florida going forward. And he still has weapons around him, despite losing 3 wide receivers to the NFL draft. Most importantly, he's got Kyle Pitts, his number 1 target, coming back at tight end. I think that's going to be huge for him coming back in. But bottom line, I think he's the guy to lead Florida forward, especially after the whole Felipe Franks thing. Is he comparable to some of the top passers in the SEC last year? Maybe not. Not guys like Tua and Joe Burrow, but is he going to be one of the top guys in the SEC this year? Absolutely. And I think Blake's right. I think they're absolutely a playoff sleeper, and I think that's something we talked about before.
He certainly gives them some stability at quarterback. I mean, after years of trying to figure out Felipe Franks, and they had Del Rio at one point, and those guys didn't exactly cut it to the level that Florida needed. Trask was really good. I don't quite put him in the Heisman conversation, at least preseason, but I think he's a really, really good quarterback. And the name Josh mentioned that I think is the total X factor is Kyle Pitts. I mean, it's a 1-2 toss-up, best tight end in the country. It's either Pitts or it's Pat Freiermuth. I really like Kyle Pitts, and the fact that they have an offensive weapon coming back like this, despite losing a couple receivers, I think is going to help Florida immensely. So between always having a stellar defense, I mean, we know with Florida, they haven't gotten by Georgia in the last couple of years, but the key for Florida is they need to win that Georgia game, because if they win that Georgia game, there's no reason they can't run the table in the East.
I think for me, Kyle Trask has all the makings of being a great SEC quarterback. I think he threw 25, 26 touchdowns last year, 7 interceptions. So more than the previous guys we mentioned, but when you're throwing 25 touchdowns and, about 3,000 yards, you're in good company, especially when you did what you did last year at Florida. I think he has all the intangibles. He's got everything. He's got great pocket awareness. He doesn't make many mistakes. The 7 interceptions, some of those were iffy. He had a ball. What was it? Was it him 2 years ago that had that deep ball touchdown as time expired? I don't remember.
Against Tennessee?
Yeah. Was it Trask or was that Felipe?
I
think it may have been Felipe. I think it was Felipe Franks. But, Trask's got everything right. Lyle said he's not going to put him in a Heisman. I could put him in Heisman contention right now, but he's not going to be a Heisman favorite starting off the year.
Right.
He's got, like I said, he has all the intangibles, but he needs to prove just a little bit. 10 games, shortened season, so you got to do everything in your power to do it. And guys in the comments saying it was Felipe Frank. Yeah, it was Felipe against Tennessee.
So, I mean, yeah, Loud said it perfectly. If Florida can get over, it's kind of like the thing with Michigan, where if they can get over that, if they just beat Ohio State, they're going to be able to reach the playoff. They're going to be able to reach the Big Ten title game. Same thing with Florida. If they can get over that hump, they can beat Georgia, they're likely going to be making that title game. So, Florida, Kyle Trask, I mean, I'm high on them. I'm high on Kyle Trask. I'm high on Florida. I know you guys are bold. So, my man, Connor, my man.
Connor, what are you doing?
My guy. He's coming for that fantasy football champion. Connor, thank you so much for your generous donation. I saw the notification. It popped up on the screen. Let me take a nice little photo of it. And we were trying to figure out what we can say in the private chat. Connor, you're the man. Again, if you think by doing this, I'm going to go easy on you in fantasy football when we meet up, you got another thing coming because I'm handing you that L, my man. I'm handing you that L. You're taking this L from me. You're going to be able to beat Lyle, no problem. You can beat Josh, no problem. You can beat Brady, no problem. That's going to be okay. You'll get those easy wins. But against me, you're going to have to earn your victory. You're going to have to earn that victory. But thank you so much, man. We know we've talked about it in previous shows. We've had you on the show, and we can't thank you enough for being generous. And you're the man. That's all I got to say, guys. If you want to add anything, go right ahead.
I'm just giving you a round of applause. You're the man.
Thank you, Connor.
I mean,
I'm taking that money back and more.
I like the idea. I like where his mind's at, Connor. But
I need to give when Connor and I play. This is perfect for me. So Connor, when you and I play, we need to have like a high stakes matchup, kind of like what my former roommate Chase wanted to do. Like whenever we play in fantasy, when we played in the championship game this past year, it was me and him, and he said, you know what? Later with the first and second pot money, winner take all. Winner take all. So Connor, if you want to have a high stakes matchup whenever we play, if you want to put some money on the line, I'm down. I am down to put my money where my mouth is, because I know for a fact I'm having a great team. And by the way, all of you guys, speaking of which, you guys can see the team that I draft, the team that Connor drafts, the team that all these guys draft live on Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern. We're doing a live fantasy football draft. So Connor, again, you're the man, but I'm not going easy on you in fantasy. You got to earn this win.
Blake, do we have a 10-person league or a 12-person league?
Well, it was, as of right now, it was 10. But actually, one thing I want to say, I want to give a shout out to Sam Simpson, who became a Patreon member during the show about 15 minutes ago. So Sam Simpson, I'm not sure if you're there in the chat right now. I'm not sure if you're anything, but thanks for donating. So Sam Simpson's now going to be in the league. It is now an 11-man league. There is one spot remaining. So I know some people are commenting saying, how do I get in this league? If you want in on the league, you have to become a Patreon member. You can become a member of the league by just donating $5, becoming the $5 Patreon, or you can donate $1 or $3, and we're going to enter you into a raffle.
Donation here in the super chat.
Or if you want to, if you can either donate $5 and get a guaranteed spot in the league, or you can donate more than Connor and get a spot in the league. So whatever you want.
I will say that, like really quickly, I think we're going to have to do the draft on Zoom because our streaming software here can only do 10 people in a stream at a time.
Oh, we're not. So the thing is, we're not going to. What we're going to do is we're going to bring people in one at a time, either before we do the draft, because the draft is going to be at 7:15 p.m. Eastern, 4:15 Pacific, because I don't want to start the draft right away. So we have a 15-minute gap where we can bring in people like one by one to kind of just talk a minute or two, get their take on fantasy, or during the show throughout one by one, we can get people in like that. So again, if you want to be on the show on Thursday, talk about your fantasy draft, become a Patreon member, become a donor, and that's how we're going to get you on, because we want to get some people's like thoughts on just how they play fantasy, what their strategies are, how they're like in the draft. So again, we're not going to have everyone in at once, because having 10, 12 people will just be madness at one time. So we're going to be bringing people in one by one. We can bring in like Coster and Connor, they can go at it back and forth and talk trash to each other. We can do something like that. But so if you have any interest in
the national championship story when he's on with us.
So again, if you have any interest in doing that whatsoever, become a Patreon member, or again, if there's one spot, we need that one spot to fill. You guys can go on our Twitter, go on our Instagram, make a video explaining why you deserve to be in the league. We'll post more information on that in the coming days, because it is on Thursday. So if you're not already, follow us on Twitter at the HHShow_. Follow us on Instagram at the Harris Highlights Show, and you can figure out how you can earn a spot in that league. But that's how you got to do it. Can we play Canadian fantasy football next year? It's a lot of fun. Do they have fantasy for the CFL?
They have to.
I'm sure they have to.
I
probably
hope so.
TSN.
Would you say TSN?
Probably through TSN,
Yeah.
Sportsnet Canada.
So once again, Conrad, you're the man. Looking forward to that draft. And also, we're going to randomize. We're just going to have like that auto random draft thing an hour before. We're just going to have ESPN dictate what the draft order is. I'm going to be a great host and not just claim the number one pick. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give it a free chance for everyone. So 3:15 p.m. Pacific, we're going to know what the draft order is. But guys, a few other teams in the SEC to talk to before we get to our Q&A. One that I actually completely forgot to put on the banner is good old Georgia, because this would have been a perfect, follow-up to when we were talking about the quarterback battle at Alabama a bit earlier. We have a quarterback battle at Georgia now. I don't know if we talked about it a week or two ago when it was announced, but JT Daniels was granted eligibility, which if you're a big-name quarterback, you can be granted eligibility no matter what. And he was granted eligibility, which I was shocked by. I wasn't necessarily sure if he was. He gets granted eligibility. Now, all of a sudden, you got Jamie Newman, the transfer that came into from Wake Forest, who, according to Pro Football Focus, is the third best quarterback in the entire country. that's a hot take in itself. You got Jamie Newman going against JT Daniels. Again, as of right now, I'm not exactly sure. I'm not exactly sure how healthy I don't know if JT Daniels has been cleared. I mean, it's been a year, 11 months, 12 months since the ACL injury. So, I mean, I would assume by now he's healthy, ready to go, but who knows if he's been cleared. Guys, who do you think, one, is going to win the quarterback battle of Georgia? But number two, if you're Georgia and you're competing for an SEC title, if you're competing for a playoff spot, who would you go with in this spot?
I think I'd rather have Jamie Newman as the starting quarterback, and obviously an LA guy watching SC football. I saw JT Daniels for his freshman year, and then he looked pretty good in that first half against Fresno State this past year before he got hurt, and then Slovis took over. I think that JT is a good quarterback. I think he can be a great quarterback. Right now, I think that obviously, rehab time has been important for him. And then with already limited practice because of the injury, and now with the whole COVID situation, Jamie Newman's already proven. And JT Daniels, for me, has not proven himself yet. I still think he's going to be really good. I think he fits perfectly at Georgia. And I think he could be a really good quarterback in the future for the Bulldogs. But right now, I say you roll with the hot hand. I think you go with somebody who's proven. I think you go with somebody who has experience in a Power 5 conference, now coming in to start in a new program with some weapons around him, I think. And they also hired a new OC. So I think you go with Jamie Newman, you roll with the hot hand, and you see what he can do for Georgia this year.
Yeah, I say it's Newman, at least to start. I mean, the guy's got high expectations. He's got NFL hype, and like Josh said, he has experience. Safely, that's the way to start if you're Georgia. This could go the same way that we saw things go at Clemson, or the way things went at Alabama, where if JT Daniels is that impressive throughout practice in the coming weeks and even weeks into the season, and Jamie Newman isn't playing so well, yeah, he might get a chance. And like we've talked about, there are really good parts about his game. I mean, like I said, he's got a big arm. His deep ball is great, but there are still things for him to work on. So I think the safe play is to start Newman, especially because it's supposed to be a pretty good bet, not just a safe play, but a strong bet on him having a good year. And then they'll just kind of see where the year takes him. If Newman's playing well, they'll stick with Newman, and then JT gets a year to learn the Georgia offense, and he'll come in and play next year.
I'll say this: Kirby Smart has got a weapon in his back pocket in whichever quarterback he puts on the bench, right? So you have Jamie Newman coming over from Wake Forest, an established program. You have JT coming from USC, an established program. Whichever guy you start, they've been a starter in college football already. Sort of if you're Nick Saban, you got Bryce Young, who's a number 3-2 recruit in the country coming into Alabama. You got Mac Jones, who played a couple games this last year. You have a little bit of an inconsistency there. But if you're Kirby Smart, you have two guys competing for one spot at an elite program, both of which played at a high level, at the highest level in college football already so far. So for Kirby Smart, you really can't make, I say you can't make a bad decision. You could make a bad decision. But if it doesn't work out for QB-A that you start, you got QB-B right there, who has that NCAA Division I elite program experience already.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that every coach would be happy to have. This is a good problem to have, where I do think Jamie Newman, I think he's going to get the spot just because, he transferred back in January, whenever it was. He's had a lot of time there. I'm sure he's gotten really familiar with everyone. JT Daniels only transferred there like a month ago. Again, coming off the injury, I'm not exactly sure how he's going to be, but, I like Jamie Newman, but it's not a bad problem to have. It'll be interesting to see, though, how, JT, I still don't understand the move from JT Daniels, because especially now with this whole extra year of eligibility, I know there was talk of Jamie Newman potentially going to the NFL draft. I'm not exactly certain now if he gets an extra year. Let's say Georgia wins the SEC and they come up short in the playoff. Maybe Jamie Newman decides to stay another year, and all of a sudden JT Daniels is kind of sitting back yet again. So we'll have to wait and see. But it's a great problem to have, because having two quarterbacks that are, I'm not sure what Newman was coming out of high school, but JT Daniels was a 5-star quarterback. So if your backup's a 5-star that has looked good, it's not like he kind of just lost his job because he sucked. He tore his ACL, and Keaton Slovis kind of came out and was an amazing quarterback.
Yeah, it's not like he lost his job.
Yeah,
okay, you lost the job, but it's not like it was taken from you.
Right. So he's still a very formidable quarterback, so it'll be interesting to see. But again, I wasn't exactly sure why he decided to transfer to Georgia, but who knows?
Real quick, I'll also say, especially having a quarterback coming from a program like USC, who was a year and a day starter at USC, that's something you got to rely on. I'm not saying, Wake Forest is a slouch at all, but it's USC. Come on. You're a starting quarterback at one of the most elite, world-renowned football programs of all time. You got to take that into consideration as well, especially was he a freshman when he started?
Yeah, he was a true freshman. He started over 2 upperclassmen. He started over Matt Fink, who was a sophomore, and Jack Sears, who was a junior, I think. They were both older than he was, with a year already in the program.
Whatever it was, he started at a Pac-12 school like USC as a freshman. You got to take that into consideration.
So there you go. So Brady sent something to our private chat, and I was like, okay, what's the deal? And then I came to the comments, and Lucas McKnight, we've officially, it's become Storage Wars now, where it's an actual bidding war.
Leave it to you to bring Storage Wars up, Blake.
Hey, you got it. By the way, Storage Wars. My dad was on it the other.
Oh yeah,
my dad was on it the other night, and I was watching the episode with him. There's something weird about watching your dad on TV with your dad next to you. It's a weird thing, but Lucas McKnight, Blake, go buy yourself a Ryan Tannehill jersey, and I'll go easy on you and the rest of the boys in the league. A Ryan Tannehill jersey. Well, if Ryan Tannehill, also there's like some weird static thing going on. Ryan Tannehill jersey, if I pick Ryan Tannehill in my fantasy league and I win a championship with him, I will without a doubt do it. I consider getting a Lamar Jackson jersey because he led me to the championship in our league of record this past year. Thanks for playing against me, guys. Good chance. But Lucas McKnight, he actually sent me a DM, and he was like, okay, so like when I'm on the show on Thursday, what's the level of extent where he's like, first he asked if he can cuss. And I'm like, DM wise, you can cuss on the show. I mean, we've done it before on accident, but we'll keep it on the ground level. He was like, can I talk trash to the guys? Can I engage in a lot of trash talk with the guys? And I said, I would hope so. Please. I hope you're talking trash to the guys. That's what I want. I mean, I need that. I need the trash talk. And so Lucas, let me have it. Let the guys have it. Again, if you think this is going to let me go easy on you in our matchup, you're mistaken, because I'm still going to hand you the cell. I'm going undefeated in this league. I'm calling it right here, guys. I'm guaranteeing it. My team is going to be so good. We're going to be going undefeated. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. So Lucas, again, you're the man. Thank you so much. Looking forward to having you on the show this upcoming week to talk some fantasy football, to see what kind of a team you draft. Maybe he's going for Ryan Tannehill. Maybe now I got to draft Ryan Tannehill before him. Also, we'll have to wait and see.
I looked through the team names. We need to get some creative team names up in that league, guys.
As opposed to Team Goldstein and Team Klein. Blake and I are already going at each other with the team names.
I wait until I draft because I'm saving my favorite team name for our other league.
Well, that's fair. Yeah, that's a good point. But at least for now, mine is it's JS the better host, and Blake's is Blake's still the greatest host, or something like that.
I'm looking it up right now.
A page out of Chase's book.
So. Or one of my books, when every time I play an opponent, I like give them the team, or my team name is something about them. Yeah, so as of right now, I'm just looking at some of what we got. We got, the greatest host. We got Team K Vito. We got Team Splonsky, Ryan Tannegoat. So that's Lucas McKnight. Andrew Coster, his is Team Coster. He needs to get on that and change his. We got Team Goldstein. We got the Washington football team. We got the Minnesota Blizzards. That's actually from Sam Simpson, who just joined about 10 minutes ago. We got JS, the best host. We got Pooter Pie. I'm not exactly sure what Pooter Pie is. We got the Conman artist from Connor, and we got Brady rocking with the Team Klein. And guys, something I just want to share with you as well. We actually had Bryson Splonsky become a Patreon member, and he is officially now in the league. So we have ourselves a full 12-man league. Now, it is a 12-man league. However, I will be willing to potentially push it to a 14-man league. So if you're watching this right now and you want to know, because we want to get as many people in potential, we're not going to make a 20-man league. That's just going to be a death trap. I will make the exception going to 14. So we the final offer. So if you're watching this, if you're listening to the show, if you want to be in a fantasy football league with us, we're doing a live draft Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, live here on YouTube. You guys can get in on that. You can go to our Patreon page, become a Patreon member, and you are officially in the draft. you're officially in. I think right now I have all the spots closed, so you can still join and then shoot me a message saying you joined, and I'll get an extra spot for you. So we are going to currently max to 12. No one else comes in, we'll keep it at 12. But if we do have 1 or 2 people that want to come in, we will push it to 14 just because we're fantastic people. We want you guys to be in on this. We want as many people as possible. The more people I can beat, the better, guys. That's my logic. That means I can beat 2 extra people.
Blake wins 1 year in our other group, and now he thinks he's super good at fantasy. This is a 2-time champion in the bottom right corner of the screen, boys.
That's true.
Hey, there's a cursed number 1 draft picker right here.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Can Brady explain real quick before we move on? I think we have one more team, don't we? Or we have to do our top 5 players. But before we do that, can Brady explain his bad luck with the first overall pick 3 years in a row?
Yeah, so what was it? It's been 3 years in a row. Not this year. I finally got out of that curse. I'm the 7th pick in our big league, in our other league now. Finally, for the first 3 years, I had the number 1 overall pick. It was randomly selected. It was shuffled, whatever it was. And I got the number 1 pick 3 years in a row. The third year I drafted, I took David Johnson, number 1 overall. Right? He had a great year. He was supposed to be, the great running back. And in game 1, he breaks, I think it was his hand that he broke and never came back. That's a shame. In year 2, I'm like, you know what? You know what a great year? Le'Veon Bell. Let's take Le'Veon Bell, number 1 overall. He's hurt and out for the year. It was only what? Or he held out. Didn't he hold out?
He held out all year.
He held out all year. Let's go 4 so we can see your reactions. I can verify.
Yeah.
He held out all year. And then the last year, I took Saquon, number 1 overall. And, he played a few games, but was really inconsistent and had the injury bug. So 3 years in a row, I got cursed number 1 overall pick. Let's see if it can turn it around this year, hopefully.
Well, I know in our league, you didn't get the number 1 overall pick. That went to good old tall Matt, giraffe Matt. And I actually have the number 2 overall pick.
Matt too, because remember Matt took like AB last year, and then AB didn't do it.
Yeah.
So we'll have to wait and see. Brady, we'll see what happens. We'll see if you get the number 1 overall pick in this draft on Thursday. And what we're going to do is during the year, every week, we'll give a quick rundown, kind of what we did last year in our fantasy league. We kind of talked about how we were doing everything. We'll give a quick rundown, who played who beat who, anything notable like that. So we'll be talking about this fantasy football league all year. Again, if you want to be in that league, links in the description below, patreon.com/The Harris Highlight Show. What?
Pacers just got swept.
You hate to see it. Hey, it's okay, Brady. Based on this, in 3 or 4 days, I'll be with you on first-round playoff exits from our NBA teams. Yep. All right, guys.
Lucas was dirty.
It really was. There are
so
a few more things, but these we can just go through so that we can get to our top 5 players. We can get to our Q&A that we want to get to. First things first, guys. Tennessee, they finished the season on a 6-game winning streak last year. They finished the season 8-5. They're number 25 in the AP poll, but now in the new updated AP poll, they're going to come in at number 16 when the season officially starts. What are your thoughts on Tennessee finishing the season on such a hot streak, one of the longest winning streaks in the country? And is Tennessee, we kind of talk about this jokingly in years past because, we all like Tennessee. We like that they used to be so good, but they've just been complete, trash the last few years. Do you think that this was just kind of like a fluke, or this is something they can build on, and Tennessee actually might be a low-key threat in the SEC this year?
They are a threat in the SEC. Maybe not this year, but in general moving forward, I'm going to say they are. I like Rocky Top this year. I don't think they stick around in that top 25 long term, especially if we were playing a normal season. I think they're a decent team this year. I don't think they're a great team. So in the SEC East this year, I have them finishing 3rd ahead of Kentucky and South Carolina, who I think are also going to be around 500 teams. Tennessee this year, I like Jared Guarantano a lot. He's not the best quarterback in the SEC because you've got a quarterback battle between 2 great guys at both Alabama and Georgia, and Kyle Trask and elite Bo Nix. So obviously Guarantano is not one of the top guys in the SEC, but he can get there. I think let me try to phrase this. I think he is the best quarterback on a decent team in college football, if that makes sense. I think if he went to another program, if he was at a school like Alabama or LSU, he would be elite. But fact of the matter is that he's on a decent team right now, so he's not going to get that much attention. But he's really good, and I think that he can be really good in the future. So Tennessee, I think they're a 6-win team this year, and I think in a season where you're only playing 10 games and you play in the SEC, I think a 6-4 record is not too bad if you're Tennessee this year, and I think that's what they do.
Yeah, I just want to see them get some quality wins, I guess. First, like some, I guess, signature wins. Obviously, most of these SEC teams are quality, but it's kind of, I guess that's kind of how I always view things. Yeah, they had that nice streak at the end of the year, but let's see it kind of carry over to 2020. If it does, I think there's every reason to believe in them.
You know, you really can't. You'd love to ride on last year's high, 6-game win streak. Hopefully it can carry over, you know, with the returning quarterback. You don't know how it's going to work, though. This year is going to be so different. Everything's just going to be so not normal. That's the only easiest way I can describe it, is everything's just going to be so out of the norm, especially when half your conferences are playing, half of them aren't. You know, I think Tennessee's going to have a decent year. You know, 6-4, 5-5, middle of the pack in the SEC. So I really don't know how much I can expect from SEC. You know, we saw the 6-win streak last year, but moving forward this year, I really don't know how much we're able to see from them, especially with the Pac-12 or an SEC only schedule. I
hope Rocky Top's back. It'd be great to see him back, but that's just one of those things we'll have to wait and see. Guys, do you believe in Jimbo Fisher to potentially guide the Aggies to the SEC title game? They came in, I think, at 13 in the AP poll, so they're high on him, but I know we've talked about Jimbo in the past. Not too high on Jimbo. Texas A&M, I get they've had a brutal schedule the last few years. I think they've had like a top 5 hardest schedule the last 2 years, but they still have underperformed. Kellen Mond, he could be a good quarterback, but he hasn't shown it yet. The Aggies, can they make any damage in the SEC this year?
No, I don't think so. I think they have the potential to upset one of those top 4 teams, and by top 4, I mean Georgia, Florida, Bama, LSU. Those are my top 4 in the conference. They can upset one of those teams. I don't know if they will. That's not how I see the season going. But, like, let's put it this way. They're a 6-4 team. I think, like I just said about Tennessee, I think 6-4 is really good for the Vols this year. 6-4 for Texas A&M. I think you take it this year because I think those 4 losses are those 4 big teams because I believe all 4 of them are on the schedule for them. I went through, Blake and I both, when we did our schedule predictions, I don't know about you guys because we mentioned it in the group, we went through every single game on the schedule to do the predictions. I don't remember who I had them losing to, but I have 4 losses written down. I think they're a good team. I think they take a step forward. But again, this is in a regular season. This is a team that I would think would go 8-4 or 9-3. But since we're only seeing conference games this year, I think they're a 6-win team at the most. They could upset somebody, but I think the likelihood of them getting upset by one of those bottom teams in the conference is just as likely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Kylan Hill probably has a good year. And aside from that, they probably are right around 500, maybe a little bit above.
You know, I feel like Texas A&M is one of those teams that's always there, right? We always hear about them. They're always ranked no matter, you know, what they did the year prior, what recruiting class they got. They're one of those programs that are always there. They're not an elite program like Josh, you said, the Big 4 in the conference, but they're always there. I think they'll be there, but I would equate them equally to, you know, the Tennessee on that side of their of the conference. So I'd say Tennessee and Texas A&M are fairly equal head-to-head teams, you know, at a 5-5, 6-4 record.
I agree. And Connor coming in again. Some people are wondering why I'm trying to make myself go broke doing this. It's because I've been having a good couple of weeks. I just want to spread the happiness and make everyone's day a bit better. Well, Connor, you make our days better. You're the man. I think now he officially has dethroned Lucas from Lucas's donation. Sorry, Lucas. Again, I'm not trying to have you guys start a bidding war. I mean, again, if you guys want to fund the show and keep us going moving forward, it's donations like this that, again, helps Josh get a brand new mic. It helps.
If we could make $5,000 a week, we'd be good. We'd be fine.
Yeah, so if you guys want to help us make $1,000 a week, so that way we can bring this show. We can get a brand new studio. We can all move to LA. We can do daily shows, and it'll be donations like this that keep us going. So, Connor, again, you're the man. My favorite. I'm down.
It's expensive. Move to Indiana. Indiana's cheaper.
I always like seeing the comments that come in right after when people see the replies, just because they're like, oh my goodness, like what's happening. So Connor, you're the man. You're the absolute man. You're the best. We like it. He might not be done. Yeah,
So was
Lucas.
Lucas tonight, though.
So again, you guys are the man. Brady, I was going to click at the same time you did. A great idea. So again, with donations like Connor, with donations from Lucas, those can help us again keep this on a week-to-week basis. I'm sure once the job market opens up and they get jobs, it's not going to be as easy to consistently do this show on a week-to-week basis. So again, if we're able to make enough money where I'm not saying this can be a full-time job, but if we're able to support ourselves doing this, that'd be fantastic. So we appreciate all of your guys' donations. Don't worry, the money immediately goes from my Venmo account to all of these guys because YouTube's stupid where it literally takes like a month and a half to actually get the money. They only Connor just donated more money than Bo Nix completed passes. I think he donated more money, I think, than Bo Nix averages yards per game. I think that's what it is right there. So again, because YouTube, it only pays you on the 20th. So all the money that's being donated, it doesn't come into like my account until now September 20th. So I Venmo these guys all the money. So that way we're all getting our money. Don't worry, I'm not being an awful host and taking all the money, which I very well could. I could keep all the money, but I'm a great
track
person.
record proves that you're such a great person in that regard, right?
Hey, if every show makes about $4. So if every show you guys want your $1, we'll get that your way.
Okay, but I've done the math on this over the 4 years. This would add up to like we could each have an extra like $150 something.
Okay, we'll see. I'll go back and crunch the numbers on that one. But guys,
Do we trust Blake to crunch them?
No, we don't. Not after. I don't think I even passed stats at ASU, but I somehow graduated. Guys, a few final things, guys. What are we expecting from Ole Miss and Mississippi State under their brand new coaches? It's going to be an egg bowl for the century. I don't know when they're playing this year. I need to go back and look at the revamped schedule. But we got Lane Kiffin now at Ole Miss, Mike Leach at Mississippi State. Probably the two. I'm trying to think of a word to describe these coaches. And I can't come up with it because they are just so different and unique. Characters. That's one right there. What are you guys expecting from these two teams under their new coaches?
I think that there are some weapons there. I think that they will have success in the future. But this year, in the shortened season, just conference play, I don't see the two teams winning more than 6 games combined. I have Mississippi State going 4-6. I think KJ Costello leading the offense is big. I think Kylan Hill's really big. At Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin, they've got a couple of decent weapons, but ultimately, from a team standpoint, the two teams in Mississippi just don't have what it takes to compete with the top teams in the conference. I think they're both middle of the pack teams in a typical season. But again, with a shortened season, you're going to be playing fewer games. You're going to be winning fewer games, especially against only SEC competition. I'm not feeling both of those teams this year. I think they're going to take steps. I think you'll see the improvements being made, but they're still going to lose a lot of games in conference.
Ole Miss, I don't have a lot of faith in. Mississippi State, a little bit more. Okay, first off, let me do one of those PTI error things. Like a couple minutes ago, I said Kylan Hill for Texas A&M. No, for Mississippi State, Kylan Hill. I think Kylan Hill has a good year, and obviously Costello's a big arm, tall, good pocket passing quarterback. And I think that Mississippi State can put up some fights. I think a Mike Leach offense, like we saw at Washington State, is in pretty much just about every ball game. But the SEC is a little bit of a different ball game than the Pac-12. So I think Mississippi State can, like I said, I think they'll exceed expectations, but the expectations aren't that high to start with.
These two teams play each other week 9 of the 10-week season. And it doesn't matter if each of these teams are 0-8 going into that game. This needs to be like the primetime game. I don't know any other games are that week, but the head-to-head matchup of the two head coaches needs to just be showcased. That's all I really care about. I don't expect much from any of these teams. You just need the head coach showcase right there.
What they need to do is they need to do one of those things where when there's a big game, the main broadcast is on ESPN, and then the secondary broadcast is ESPN2. Have it literally just where you have Pat McAfee doing that game and just he's constantly just on the sideline. Coach cam. You have the one camera that has the game, and then in each corner you just have the cam on Kiffin and Leach. And then you have Pat McAfee doing interviews every quarter, one-on-one. So there you go right there. All right, guys, we've gone through pretty much almost all the teams. It's time now. Well, do you guys want to get to our standing predictions first or our top 5 players first?
Let's do players.
We'll do players. All right, guys. Top 5 players in the SEC. Again, this can be the 5 best players in the conference. This can be the 5 players you're looking forward to seeing the most. Just 5, any players you want. It can be however your top 5 is. You guys can just go 5 through 1. Since it is already, 6:20. I mean, if you want to explain a little on it, you can. But, I mean, we've talked about a lot of these players, I think, already. So no need to go really too in-depth on any of them, I don't think.
So I'll start it off. Number 1, don't really need to go into too much detail on this one. Jamar Chase. I think he's the best wide receiver in the country. Won the Biletnikoff last year. I don't think it matters who's quarterback. I think he's going to put up big numbers, and I think he's the best wide receiver in the country. Number 2, also don't need much of an explanation. Derek Stingley Jr. at LSU. I think he's best defensive back in the country. I think a lot of people were afraid to throw his way last year, and he still had 6 picks. So I'm trying to figure out if his stats are going to be inflated this year because he's better, or are they going to decrease a little bit numerically because people are going to be really afraid to throw toward him, just like they were last year. But yeah, I think he's the best defensive back in the country. I've got him at number 2. Number 3, Dylan Moses, linebacker from Alabama. He's back on the field after tearing his ACL last year. Missed all of last season. I think he's primed to return to the Bama defense. I think he's going to dominate the SEC, and I think he's going to be a top 10 pick. Number 4 and 5 are kind of my I don't know if a lot of people would have them top 5, but here we go. Number 4, I've got Kylan Hill. We were just talking about Mississippi State. He rushed for over 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns last year, and then also added 180 yards receiving and a touchdown. Here's the thing. New coach. He's got Mike Leach, who runs one of the most dynamic offenses in college football over the past decade at multiple schools. He's got a brand new quarterback in KJ Costello. His receptions are going to increase. His carries are going to increase. And with how explosive and dynamic and versatile he already is, there is a legitimate chance that Kylan Hill turns into the best offensive player not named Jamar Chase in the SEC this year. And I say that with full confidence. He's also a fantastic college fantasy player. I would know. I love this guy. I mean, he's so lethal offensively. I think he's going to be huge this year for Mississippi State, and I think a lot of people are going to pay attention to him in the SEC. And then my last one, here's another kind of off-the-wall pick that maybe a lot of people don't have in the top 5. Kyle Pitts, the tight end from Florida. This is a Florida team that had 3 wide receivers get selected in the draft this past year. One of them was Van Jefferson, who the Rams picked to replace Brandon Cooks in the 2nd round. And Kyle Pitts still led the team in receptions. He was 7 yards short of the team high behind Jefferson to lead that category, and he was a touchdown shy of the team leading touchdowns. He is, Lyle mentioned earlier, the best tight end in the country is either him or Pat Freiermuth. For me, it's Kyle Pitts. And I think that he's the best tight end in the country. I think he's going to be huge for Kyle Trask this year. I think that's going to be a 1-2 punch that a lot of teams in the SEC won't be able to stop. And I think that he's going to punish a lot of these teams toward the bottom of the standings in the SEC. And I think he'll be clutch for Florida. Him and Trask, that connection is going to be really, really lethal, or it's going to be really crucial for them to establish against teams like Georgia, Bama, LSU. So those are my top 5. Again, like I mentioned, there are a lot of Bama guys earlier. My honorable mentions are Alex Leatherwood, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, and Najee Harris. So I decided to try to limit the number of Bama guys I kept on the list, but those are my top 5.
I had a couple honorable mentions too. Because spoiler alert, my top 5 is players from 2 schools. So I wanted to give a little bit of a shout out to a couple other guys, to Kyle Pitts, to Kylan Hill, George Pickens of Georgia, and Trey Smith of Tennessee. And obviously there's a few other Bama guys on here that are going to be left out, but I just wanted to make sure I gave some other schools some support and recognition. Okay, number 5, Devontae Smith. Listen to this. This one I need to explain. Jerry Jeudy last year, 77 catches, 1,163 yards, 10 touchdowns. The guy who was called maybe the best receiver in the country entering last season, the guy who was expected to be the first wide receiver off the board in the draft, even though he wasn't. It was his teammate Henry Ruggs. Those were his numbers, 77, 1,163, and 10. Devontae Smith had 68 catches, so 9 less catches, and he went for 1,256 yards and 14 touchdowns. Henry Ruggs did not even come close to him in any of these categories. So Jerry Jeudy was quote-unquote like the most talented receiver on that Bama team last year. Henry Ruggs was the most explosive. The most productive one was Devontae Smith, and he's back. So, I mean, I looked at those numbers. I was like, this guy has to be on my list. So I have Smith at 5. 4, I have Dylan Moses. Bama was letting up just under 20 points a game last year. That defense was still good. They didn't even have their best, arguably their best defensive player. They get Moses back this year. That's huge. Patrick Surtain, I have at 3. Cornerback from Bama, lockdown, just shuts down one side of the field. He's going to go in the first round. He's the number 2 projected corner behind Sean Wade this upcoming year. He's at number 3. Jamar Chase, I have at number 2, and this is a toss-up for me. I mean, you can go 1-2 with either of these two LSU guys. I have Chase at 2. Just look, his numbers are probably going to decrease a little bit this year, just because of, those numbers are not sustainable, especially with losing so many guys in Burrow. Having said that, this guy's the best receiver in college football. He's going to go high in the draft, and he's an absolute unit. Chase is at 2. I have Stingley at 1. His numbers are not going to be as flashy, just like Chase's this year. The difference is, by definition, Chase's production will go down a little bit, even if it isn't much. Stingley's will not, even if the stats don't show up. This guy is legit. This is a Stephon Gilmore, Jalen Ramsey level corner. And we've seen the type of guys that LSU's produced into the NFL out of their defensive backfield in the past with Patrick Peterson, with Tre'Davious White. There's others. Derek Stingley is from what I've seen of him, is going to be right at or near the top of that list. This guy is so good. He's so locked down. He's going to shut down one side of the field every single game. So toss up between those two, but my number 1's Derek Stingley.
Mine's pretty simple. I'm going to be pretty quick forward with it. 5, I have Kyle Trask. I think I'm pretty high on him. I really liked what he did. 4, I have Dylan Moses. He's a great player. 3, Stingley. 2, Alex Leatherwood. You can't underestimate a great offensive lineman. You can't. You need to put value on a great offensive lineman. And number 1, I have Jamar Chase. I think there's really no question in my mind that Jamar is number 1. But Leatherwood's pretty close.
Yeah, Leatherwood, he's going to be a first-round pick. He's probably going to be a top 15,
Easily.
maybe even a top 10 pick when it's all said and done. Mine, I did the same thing last week. I just did mine, the 5 players I'm looking forward to seeing most, the 5 I'm most excited for. Number 5, I got Kyle Trask. Number 4, I have Miles Brendan just because I want to see what he's able to do at LSU. Number 3, Jalen Waddle, because he's the most exciting player, I think, in the SEC, probably now without Rondale Moore playing, the most exciting playmaker in the entire country. The dude's an absolute freak. Jamar Chase at number 2. And guys, for number 1, the player in the SEC I'm looking forward to see play the most in 2020 is Bo Nix. 100% being serious.
I know you are. I love it.
I want to see what he can do. Now, for those of you saying, no, he's not the best player in the SEC. He's not a top 5 quarterback in the SEC. But I'm looking forward to seeing him more than anyone, so that way I can just start bagging him, so I can start ragging on him for being an awful quarterback, or he proves us wrong, and he's actually a fantastic quarterback. But before we get to our Q&A, guys, which, by the way, for the Q&A, we're going to have to probably rapid fire so we can, get this because we're already kind of going over. Brady, if you can get our standings up, because these are our SEC record predictions. This was an annoying graphic to make. Let me get Lyle's thing off the screen. Here we go, guys. Here are our record predictions. It looks like at the top we all have Georgia coming in first, with the exception of Brady. He's got Florida going 9-1, Georgia going 8-2. All of us have Vanderbilt going 1-9, so it's not going to be a good year for Vanderbilt. Everyone except for Josh has Alabama coming out on top. But I think Josh said there was a tie between his, but LSU beats Bama in the tiebreakers. So that's why LSU gets the edge over Bama. It looks like Brady, he's the highest. Well, I guess Brady and Josh, they're both high on LSU. They got him going 9-1. I got him 7-3. Lyle's got him at 8-2. And one thing I just want to mention right away, guys, Arkansas. I looked at that Arkansas schedule. I don't see Arkansas winning a game. Lyle has Arkansas winning 2 games, but Arkansas's got the hardest schedule in the SEC. I don't know who they're beating. But looking at this, guys, looking at this schedule right here, are there any notable takeaways that you guys have from where we all kind of put everything together?
Like I kind of mentioned earlier, you and I went through. I mean, again, I think everybody did, but you and I mentioned it in our group chat. When I was doing the standings, I went through every single conference game. And I have the top, and again, the top 4 teams that we all kind of agreed on: Georgia, Florida, Alabama, LSU. I think with such a strange season, assuming we get to see a full season of college football and it's only in the SEC, I think those top 4 beat up on each other all season long. I have LSU beating Bama, Bama beating Georgia, Georgia beating Florida, and Florida beating LSU. I think it's going to be like that kind of cycle. But I think it's pretty clear, like regardless of what you think a team's record is going to be, whether Georgia's a 1 or 2 loss team, whether LSU's a 2 or 3 loss team, all of us seem to kind of have an understanding of who the top 2 teams in each division are going to be and who the bottom 2 are going to be. I think that when you look at the whole SEC from top to bottom, there's a clear-cut top 4, there's a clear-cut bottom 2 in Arkansas and Vanderbilt, and then that middle section, I mean, I could have seen everybody go 5-5 at least. So I think it's going to be strange because you're only going head-to-head with each other, so you're just going to have – it's going to seem like the SEC is the Pac-12 this year where everybody just beats each other up for the most part.
There you go. I mean, it's spot on. Nothing for me to add, but these are the records. Unless Lyle, unless you have anything that you wanted to add before we move on.
I think we covered it.
All right, perfect. All right, guys, it's time now for the Q&A. So, guys, this one is actually going to be, we say rapid fire before, but this is straight up going to be rapid fire. No explanation, just give your answers. Give your answers for these questions. We head to Twitter, though, because we got a few to get to there. Johnny Barrow, is KJ Costello set to have a Joe Burrow-like season?
No.
That's just a little unrealistic.
You won't see a Joe Burrow-like season for another 10 years.
If they would have had a full season, I definitely think he could have potentially thrown for nearly 5,000 yards, maybe like 40 touchdowns, just because with Mississippi State, they're going to be throwing the ball like crazy. They're constantly going to be losing games for the most part, where Joe Burrow, he was doing this and LSU was constantly winning. Mississippi State's going to be playing catch-up most of the time. So Heisman winner, no, but he definitely could put up the numbers, especially if you're doing fantasy. Seth 3, can everyone give their best Ed Orgeron impression?
I don't have one.
Do it, Lyle.
You got to do it.
We gotta try.
Oh, jeez. What? Thank you, man. Love you, man. Go Tigers.
Hold on.
Yeah, I got to get...
I can't do it with the water in my mouth. I really was going to try.
Hey, man. Love you, man. Go Tigers.
Hey, go Tigers. That was really, really bad.
Hard.
Yeah. I love me some gumbo, canes, toast.
I mean,
chicken
nobody's
fingers,
going
and
to
their great
top
coleslaw.
yours.
Go Tigers. But the best thing about Coach O is his Hummer. Have you seen that commercial? Have you seen that? It's great. Coach O does a great job. Wear a mask. That's all you got to do. Go Tigers.
We got to get my buddy Joey on here. He does the best.
Jamie, I love your brother Michael Orr. I think he'd be a great player at Ole Miss. We really could use him, Jamie. You can route the tunnel with us. You can lead the field and go Rebels.
Jamie, his name was SJ.
SJ.
Oh, SJ. I can't remember what it was.
Jamie.
I haven't seen that movie.
Jamie? It stands for Sean Jr., Sean Toohey. Come on, Blake.
All right, I can remember, guys.
You uncultured
guys.
swine.
I'll stay out of this one. Would you guys rather have every traffic light you come to be green or never be in a line again? Let's just roll through these, boys.
How do you expect me to roll through a short round question?
True.
We have to think about it. I'll say – go ahead, Lyle.
I'll take the never being in a line.
I'll take the never being in a line too. I feel like, hey, every once you can quickly like change the song at a red light when you're driving. Blake wouldn't know, obviously, but I mean, I'll take the line one.
I'm going to go waiting in line because, where I'm from, all we have is roundabouts and no stoplights. So I just go around roundabouts all day anyways. We're fine.
All right, guys. This next question comes from Calman. Good old Connor. What do you think is more likely to happen? Kansas wins the Big 12 or Alabama goes winless?
Kansas winning the Big 12 because it's the Big 12 and who knows what happens there.
Well, Alabama plays Arkansas this year, so there's going to be one win at least. I say that Kansas wins the Big 12.
I'm also going to take Kansas winning the Big 12.
I already gave my answer.
I want to go actually Alabama going winless. I mean, the SEC stuff, anything can happen. Who knows? I'm really high on Kansas. Why do you guys hate Texas A&M?
Who said we did?
Don't hate Texas A&M.
I think it's based on our what our rankings were, what our stands were.
Texas A&M is slept on, and while y'all stay sleeping, they stay grinding.
They really do.
They really do that.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Logan Govon. or go Van. Which group of 5 team do you think has the best chance of making the playoff?
Cincinnati.
Are they still
Memphis.
gonna-
Memphis.
I was going to take Memphis.
Memphis. I'll say Memphis over Cincinnati.
Yeah, I like Memphis or Cincinnati, but I'm going to go with Memphis on that one. Just some notable things right here. My town is so small, we don't even have traffic lights. I live in Orlando, so we have no roundabouts. And yeah, guys, I mean, based off the comments, I think that's enough for the Q&A. Just because we're running low on time. It's been a long, busy show, so and a lot to wrap up before we get things underway. So first and foremost, thank you to Connor. Thank you to Lucas. Thank you guys so much for donating. We really appreciate it. Again, the money's going to good use. Josh, hopefully that mic's going to be coming in soon so that way your audio can improve. Hey, Lyle, if you want a brand new mic, we got the money for it now. You can get a Yeti like I have or whatever the good one that Brady has is. So let us know. Or, this can go for your PB&J run next time you go get a PB&J stuff. So let us know.
What's that like dollar burger place we went to in Seattle, Lyle?
Oh, at Dick's Burgers.
Just go get a bunch of those. Those were so good.
They are pretty good.
All right, make sure to follow the show on Twitter at the HH Show _ Not exactly sure what's going on here. You guys can follow us on Instagram at Harris Highlights Show. Make sure to give us a follow over there. You guys can now listen to the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. The link is in the description of this video. Or you can go over to those apps and you can search for us. You'll find us there. You guys can become a Patreon member for as little as $1 a month. And you can compete in a fantasy football league live this Thursday. So I'm like losing my breath here at 7 p.m. Eastern. So if you want to be in that draft, you have until I guess Wednesday or Thursday. Make sure you guys go donate and hit me up in my DMs. That way I can add you because I think the league is closed right now. So if you have any interest in playing college football or regular NFL fantasy and you want to be in that live draft, it's Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be doing a live show. We're going to be streaming us doing the draft. That's going to be a lot of fun, guaranteed. Guys, any parting words before we head out until Thursday?
Go Lakers.
I'm going to give you guys a quick update. None of you won the Indy 500 bet. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Where did
That's
Andretti
okay.
finish?
Like 13th.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hey,
16th.
Short round says for the draft, take a kicker #1 overall.
First round, everybody has to take a kicker.
It goes kicker, defense, and everyone else.
I like it.
All right, so for Josh Schaefer, Lyle Goldstein, Brady Klein, this has been Blake Harris. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we are going to see you guys here Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern.